So let's get started. Welcome to our Master of Liberal Arts information session. And let me start by welcoming you to the beautiful University of Chicago. This is a primarily online program, but the reason we start with this photo is because this is the place where the big ideas and the scholars and the community that you feel deeply in this program emanate from in Hyde Park. It is a place of 101 Nobel Prizes, more than any other place in the universe, and a place that I call home every day, and that is just remarkable in so many ways, as we'll talk about. What we want to do over the next hour is welcome you. We want to give you a snapshot of the MLA. We want to talk specifically about the learning journey, about the timeline and details, and then we'll take your questions. And my name is Seth Green. I'm the dean here at the University of Chicago Graham School. And I wanted to start by asking my peers on this video conference to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how they came to this. And so let me start. Tim, can you get us started with who you are?
Of course. Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you. My name is Tim Murphy, and I'm the director of the Master of Liberal Arts program here at UChicago. I've been with the Graham School working with the MLA program for a little over 9 years at this point. And prior to that, I was a student at the university. I was a history major and did a master's in American political history. I found with one of the things that drew me here that the MLA program in a lot of ways represents the best of what I remember to be the UChicago education. So excited to get into some more details here in due time.
And Beth, can we ask you to introduce yourself? And Beth, as she'll say, is a recent
Yes.
alumna.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I am, graduated in June. I started the program in September of 2022 and I graduated this past June. And I came into the program with an MBA and a degree in journalism, an undergrad degree in journalism, and started looking at the program in 2018. And in my corporate career, wanted to expand and look, and I'll talk more about it during our conversation, but just a different way of thinking and expanding and really diving into the MLA education, the liberal arts education.
And Carrie, who are you?
Hey everyone, I'm Carrie Dempsey. I am the Director of Recruitment for the MLA program. I've been with UChicago for almost 2 years now, and I am thrilled that my team and I get to work closely with each of you as you navigate the next steps in your educational journey. I really do believe that the liberal arts foster a broader way of thinking that's very essential in our personal and professional lives. And while I might be a little bit biased, I do believe that UChicago's program is the perfect place to achieve that. So I look forward to walking you through the admissions process a little bit later during our conversation.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to come back to all of these individuals throughout the video conference and during the Q&A, but I'll get us started on the snapshot. So the MLA is designed to help you grow as a leader, as a problem solver, and as a communicator through advanced study in the liberal arts. And the reason that this is such an important education is that we are in a transforming world. And in the context of that very real and rapid transformation, the MLA gives you the tools that are foundational to critical thinking, to synthetic thinking, and to be able to engage with and really thrive in that changing world. And we hope that this is not only fueling your professional growth, but we talk about the MLA as a double win degree in the sense that we really hope it opens up your imagination and your wellness personally as you think deeply about issues related to purpose and ethics alongside gaining these very real tools in your toolkit for career. And so one way that we often talk about the MLA is as a cognitive boot camp, often for people who are in midlife and who are seeking to advance. And so we see this first and foremost as about helping you as a thinker. Synthetic thinking, for those who are not familiar, is being able to take a lot of information and being able to really think about what matters and how to bring it together. There was a great conversation I had with another alum that graduated a few years ago who was in a role where they were in the finance industry at JP Morgan. They had to come up with a way to simplify some very complex changes that were taking place in the marketplace and help their leadership at the company understand kind of how do you think about all of these changes and make sense of them from a strategy investing standpoint. And she had recently taken a cosmology class where at the end they have to think about billions of years of history and how to think about what is the line through them. And she immediately said, oh, I have a way of thinking about this complex information. She was very technically savvy, but then with the MLA, she was really able to use that synthetic thinking. And ironically, because you don't think of this immediately, take knowledge and an approach she gained in cosmology all the way over to help her in her boiling down this information for her finance work. And so it's an example in my mind of that synthetic thinking that you gain. And sometimes the best way to gain that is to be put into a world where you're not an expert and you become a learner again, and you're forced to grapple with new information and then to come up with a cohesive and compelling argument in the context of this new area. The second thing that it allows you to do is to specialize. So right now we have 3 specializations: leadership and ethics, literary studies, and tech and society. And tech and society is a new addition in the last year because we saw AI and these other emerging trends, and we really wanted to have a conversation in the MLA about the intersection of these trends and society, or what might be the humanities and social sciences. And so how do we bring these bigger questions to bear to think not only about the how of technology, but also the why? And then the best part of this, and I'll let Beth speak to this in a little bit, is that you join an incredible community. And we'll talk about what the peers in this program look like, because while every MLA student has a distinct story, there are some very real common elements across our student body. For starters, like Beth, most people in the Master of Liberal Arts already have a graduate degree. And so these are individuals who typically have already advanced, including a third into executive leadership roles at major companies. And they are now in a place where they have really mastered the technical aspects of their job. They are an excellent chief financial officer. They know how to, be incredible in marketing or lead in this area, but they really want to begin building outward, because as they've grown in their leadership, they now have an even more integrated and interdisciplinary role. And so they want to often go from that technical degree or vocational degree, most common being MBA, JD, and MD. They want to now be able to marry that with this kind of deep advanced study that allows them to think more broadly and across a wide array of information. And then finally, you'll see about 20 years of professional experience is the average among the peer group. We often say that the words that are in big letters are the way to think about our students in the Master of Liberal Arts, that this is a group that is seriously curious. One of the benefits of the MLA not being on the regularly beaten track, meaning, like, oh, you have to get your MBA or you have to get your JD. One of the benefits of it not being in that track is that to a person, everyone that comes into this program is innately curious, and they are motivated by this opportunity to study in an area that is not necessarily the always, degree in that field of study. And so we're really excited to be in a place where when you're in a classroom and you're reading Plato, or you're looking at the beginning of the universe, or you're thinking about neuroscience, you can have 100% certainty that everyone else in that room is really eager to nerd out and be a part of a really deep discussion about the future of that field. We are very rigorous. This is a place where we want evidence in everything that we do. And so we really take seriously a discerning approach, and our faculty are very discerning about how they present information and how they ask questions. We are innovative in that we really want our students to make novel arguments. We try to use new approaches, including technology, to enhance your experience. And we found our students really bring that innovation back to us with a lot of their ideas. And thankfully, the program is set up with some flexibility. So often we can incorporate those student ideas into the classroom. And then finally, it's very collaborative. So even though this is an online degree, there are a lot of moments where you'll be in small Zoom rooms with your peers. And then we'll talk in a moment about residential seminars where you can be in person with them also. But that's a lot of me telling you. And there are two people that are much better experts than the dean, Tim, who leads the program, and Beth, who has actually gone through it and experienced it. And so, Beth, can we start with you? Let's talk about why you chose to pursue the MLA. And in your case, as I mentioned, you have this MBA already from your earlier education. How you've seen it as complementary to the degree you already had.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I went back and got my MBA, it helped me look at the world in a different way. And the MLA did the same thing in a different way, though. I mean, I think Dean Green talked about how you can come into with an MBA with focused skills, where I was looking for something, and I talked to Tim early on, something that I could expand my thinking. And you talked about synthesis and you talked about critical thinking. And I didn't know those words and think about that necessarily, but I think it goes to the curiosity. And I found this across my colleagues in my classes, where everybody has an innate curiosity. And when you're an undergrad, you don't have that ability as much to really dive into that. And that's what I was looking for, something where I could expand my thinking, have new skills, and really push myself outside my comfort zone. And this was something, it just had that broad range of experience and opportunities to learn different things that I had learned in the past in a very deep way, but then also, changing how I think and look at the world. And I can later on talk a little bit about how that helped me in my business life, and also the personal side as well, just making me a smarter, stronger, lifelong learner.
Great. Well, we are going to come to that. So I'm excited for your preview. And Tim, Beth gives us one example of why she chose this degree. Can you just talk to a few other examples as you see like different, target audiences or types of individuals who have come into this program and benefited from it?
Sure. So this is always a tricky question to answer because our student body really is diverse, different backgrounds, different geographies, different professions. So before I touch on a couple like common categories that we see, I think it's helpful to mention that regardless of their professions or whether they're applying for personal enrichment or career growth, there's a few common traits that they and things that they're looking for that our students will talk about in their application. So obviously sharpening critical thinking skills, becoming more confident in their ability to tackle complex problems, and improving writing. Those are the threads across there. I'll touch on a couple of the broader categories. One is leaders in tech. This is always mentioned first because it's one of the most rapidly growing segments of our student body. So for example, current student is a chief tech officer of the Dallas branch of the Federal Reserve. We have a couple senior program managers at Microsoft, and just this fall, a new student is a software architect for Raytheon. And students like this will tell us that they've mastered the how of the technologies that they work with, and they're coming to coming to the MLA to take a step back and think bigger picture and pursue the why questions. And also, people that are in tech fields or tech adjacent professions often will tell us in their candidate statements in the application that they were so focused on their careers, and so their prior training was very technical in nature, which was very important to get them going. And so now they're looking to come to us to fill in the gaps, as a phrase they'll use, to see the other side of the coin and take courses in the humanities and the social sciences. So tech professions is one. Another category I'd call business leaders, and this is just going to echo most of Beth's response there, but accomplished executives and business leaders who are seeking that cognitive boot camp that you mentioned a couple of slides ago. Like Beth, many earned their MBAs earlier in their careers. And now a few years after that, they're looking to take their leadership to the next level. And unsurprisingly, these people tend to gravitate toward our ethics and leadership courses. And then just a final category I would call communication roles, which I always say is a bit of a catch-all category, but for students that work in marketing or strategic communication or journalism. We've had a few journalists recently in the MLA program, or marketing more broadly. And by virtue of their professions, they're already excellent writers, of course, but they're seeking to further hone their craft by writing in different subject areas in our interdisciplinary curriculum, or by just guided readings and some masterpieces of literature with UChicago faculty. So those would be some of the primary buckets of professional backgrounds that we see. And then always just have to mention that people coming for personal enrichment are very much welcome as well, and are great MLA students in addition.
Great, thank you, Tim. And one of those categories is this business leadership community. And Beth, that is the one I see you in, although correct me. And so could you talk a little bit about how this experience, and you've been in the C-suite, you've advised now many executives, how you see MLA courses helping you think about leadership, and kind of more broadly, how you see the value of the liberal arts?
Yeah, I did do the business and ethics concentration, as Tim talked about, or you talked about, and it really, and the classes, that the way that works, and you'll talk about the structure of it, where I took some classes that were connected to leadership, like digital ethics. I took a leadership class that was just focused on leadership, but then I also took that class that you talked about, looking at philosophical backgrounds and how that connected. And I think the thing that it really did was it helped me think different, and in fact, in a more deeper way. You talked about the synthesizing, but also like we did deep reading. I took a class called Some Versions of the Apocalypse. And you might say, oh, is that going to help me in the corporate world? Well, it may be, because those zombies come into the corporate world. But anyway, what it did was it helped me, it first coming back and pushing myself outside my comfort zone. I mentioned is, I hadn't been in school for a very long time. And it's, that ability to broaden your brain and push your thinking, but also, taking these concepts across the different disciplines that we focus on. That was the beauty of it, is that it was different areas that I didn't know about in the past. And it's, I think when you're in an environment, you're curious, but when you're learning, it just makes you, and takes you information you can take back into the work world, and working with from a leadership and how do you pull that together? And it really makes a big difference in how, where in the past, and especially with an MBA, you're kind of talking about the end game, but here you really get the chance to step back and go deep and think more and have conversations. We'll talk a little bit about the structure of the classroom, but learning from others in new ways.
Tim, final question, and then we're going to move into the learning journey. Can you give the snapshot from your perspective of how you've seen individuals grow? So Beth gave us one example, but I'm curious just to broaden again to, this is a leadership example. How else have you seen students in this program grow in distinctive ways?
So I think the most obvious response is to speak to the confidence students gain, which is maybe a bit of a strange thing to say in light of the fact that, as we've already mentioned, most of our students have already achieved some noteworthy professional accomplishment. But a lot of them also have been out of school for, at least a couple of years, sometimes a longer span. And so it can be sort of intimidating to have you return to the classroom, be at a place like the University of Chicago. So it's always rewarding from my perspective to see students who are beginning and maybe they're a little nervous taking their first literature or poetry class, only to thrive and eagerly sign up for a neuroscience class 2 or 3 quarters down the road. Another, I can maybe give a concrete example that sort of ties together the idea of critical thinking and communication skills. There's a profile up on our website of a recent alum, Omar Imtiaz, who's a director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he talks about how the MLA opened up new opportunities for him in his career because he so dramatically improved his critical thinking and communication skills. So in his role, he often finds himself as this mediator, this translator between his clients and his team of analysts and consultants, and oftentimes they don't speak the same language, and so it's his job to listen carefully and listen critically to what his clients are saying, and then translate that into language and verbiage that his consultants can use, and then do the reverse as well. And so he talks about the interdisciplinary MLA curriculum helping him be more comfortable in those different settings, and ensuring that his team of specialists are delivering the best results for his clients.
Well, with that, I'm going to come back to sharing my screen because I want to walk through the learning journey, and then we're going to come back to Beth and Tim to hear more of their insights on the learning journey. So let me start with the curriculum. These are the 9 classes that you will take in the Master of Liberal Arts, one from each of the 4 divisions of the university. And I should emphasize that we have each of these curated by our faculty for a generally intelligent and educated audience, but non-expert. So what that means, especially in the sciences, is you have the best neurosciences, the best cosmologists. They're teaching you at a very advanced level, but they know that you do not have prerequisites. So they will have really deep discussions about the beginning of the universe or about, dark matter or about fill in the blank, but they will assume that you're not familiar with that subject area before, and you will not need any of the quantitative or mathematical background. You look at the ideas, not at the formulas. And so there are a lot of times where you will sit with, for example, our climate class, and you will read actual scientific journals, but what that instructor will do is really help you with the context so that you can engage those journals successfully, and then you'll have conversations about them. So this is, in my mind, the coolest of opportunities because you are with the real physical and biological and social scientists who are at the deep end of this work, but they are intentionally coming up to a level that you can engage and then bringing you deeper into this subject matter with them. Alongside those 4 core units, you then get to take 4 electives, one of which needs to be on a non-Western material. And now there are many of those. When we started the degree 30 years ago, it was a little bit more biased, you might say, in the Western direction. So that was meant to kind of balance. But today, you'll notice an array of those types of opportunities. And then if you take 3 of these in a similar concentration, that's how you add a concentration as part of your degree. And we'll talk about that in a moment. The capstone is a thesis, and we'll talk about the different types of theses, but it's a way for you to take a deep look at an issue that you are passionate about. Some people might connect it to their work and their goals from a career standpoint. Others may connect it personally, and some may just have an intellectual interest they haven't had a chance to scratch, or they take a class during these first 8 and they realize, I love literature and I want to go deeper into the work of Virginia Woolf with a really incredible academic advisor. Then, as we mentioned, you can concentrate those electives in these 3 areas. And I think we've talked in the question and answer so far about what these look like, so I'll move us forward. The thesis is a really special part. And I'll just say that looking at these, one thing that excites me at this moment is that the first one on here, a comparative analysis of the American and Chilean revolutions, I'm actually picturing Alvaro, who I believe, Tim, is the person that wrote this thesis, because I remember him talking to me about it after graduation. And he is now, coincidentally, regularly appearing on Chilean TV. He's from Chile. And he is one of the people, this is kind of to the side of his job, but he's become really a thought leader down there. He's helping them to understand our US election right now. He's actually going to be on election night on one of the major stations, providing analysis, helping people there understand. Not that we all in the US understand, but he's going to be helping them to do so. So
Seth, if I could just interrupt you, Alvaro told me yesterday he's actually on he's scheduled for 3 of the 5 major Chilean broadcast networks on Tuesday.
So, I mean, that is obviously a unique outcome. That is not always what happens with every graduate, but I think it does speak to a theme that is true across our graduates, which is you really get to focus on something that you find intensely interesting and that may have relevance to something that you want to build in your career. And I know for his own interests, he's always been very fascinated by this inter-American connection. And it was something that as he thought about his career, and I believe Tim, and again, apologies for doing all of this live, but he's a lawyer in terms of his day job, but he wanted to kind of add this world of thought leadership. And so just a great example in that, you know, it was very true to what he wanted to study. It was for him even more of a building block in his visibility and leadership than I think we can always anticipate. And it allowed him to go in this direction in a really exciting way. And you'll see the other examples here. There are as many examples of topics and themes as we have students. Every single student takes their own direction on this. And it really is a, you know, how do you want to capstone and really build a personalized degree that allows you to really learn and stake out a claim in a certain area of leadership. And then what we see as making our classroom special at the University of Chicago, one is that we have extraordinary faculty. So we get to choose from across the faculty of the university who elect to teach with us. What we look for are people that are scholars, but they are equally committed teachers, and they really love adult education. And to a person, the people that teach with us are people that really see joy in having individuals in their classroom who have life experience and who can offer them a lot of knowledge. And one person described being in the MLA as almost being at the chef's table, where instead of being in this role where, you know, the faculty member knows everything and then you all are just waiting for them to disseminate, it really is where you're almost cooking this pot together and you're learning together, and they're facilitating and occasionally they're lecturing, but it is very Socratic and very much devoted to joint construction of knowledge and inquiry. And the fact that you have decades of experience is valued, and there's a goal of bringing that into the classroom. The convenience is clear because we're on Zoom most of the time. We'll talk about the residential seminars. And then the University of Chicago has only grown in our prominence for this in recent years. And so you're probably familiar. If you come here, we are a place of free expression. We do not protect you from views that might be controversial or from conversations that may occasionally make you uncomfortable. We believe that knowledge happens where you can really have open, rigorous discussion. And so that is something very special in a world where there are echo chambers and where it's hard sometimes to have conversations with people that you may have different viewpoints with. We really try to facilitate that kind of diverse viewpoint and dialogue in our work. And so you'll see up here some of the eminent scholars, some of whom coined the terms in their fields like dark matter. And what we also wanted to do is it is such a special place, and we are so proud of the faculty who lead our classes that while you are able to graduate virtually, we are very committed to inviting those who can and want to be part of the campus community to experience the campus. And we really encourage everyone to try to have at least one and hopefully more residential seminars. And the construct here is very simple. Our students are now all over, and they also have busy lives. So instead of a model where you meet once a week, which is the online model, and you do it over 10 weeks, we thought, well, what if we took the 30 hours and we put 25 of them into a single week where if you come from anywhere in the country, you can be here for a week. You have a little bit of pre-work and a little bit of instruction afterward, but the overwhelming focus is on that week together. And so that allows you to complete a course in a week in Hyde Park. And then alongside the 25 instructional hours, we have a lot of different people who come and speak with you. There are trips to the, for example, Smart Museum. There are dinners at our Quad Club. there are artistic events. And so we try to give you within a week a little bit of the incredible life of the university that you hopefully then take away, even though it's not the same as being an undergrad and being in a year-long setting of constant events and experiences. The hope is for a week, you kind of have that return to the student and the life of the university. One last thing I want to share is that we are very devoted to you as students. And what we really believe is that in order for people to come back to education, sometimes 20 years after or more they've been a student, is a daunting experience, even for people that are highly accomplished. And I've been blown away by people coming up to me and, they were CEO of X company and, they're getting ready after orientation. They say, I'm really nervous. And we say, you're nervous? And they say, yeah, but, I've done this other thing. I haven't been in a classroom like this. I haven't written a paper more than, 5 pages. I've been doing PowerPoint slides for the last however many years. And so we really want to support you. And we want to make sure you succeed. And so we have many supports, the most vibrant of which is a writing advisor who is actually a part-time member of our staff and who is, really committed to you as you work through primarily papers as your final assignments. And I'll let Tim talk a little bit more about that resource. So with that, I want to return to the Q&A, and I want to start again, Beth, with you. And I want to ask you, with the benefit of hindsight, how would you describe the educational experience of the MLA? And maybe talk a little bit about who was in the classroom with you.
Actually, who I'm going to start with that is who was in the classroom. I mean, so the way it's set up is you go and I did a residential seminar but most of my classes were online, and you start at 6:30, go to 9:30, and it is a vibrant discussion. It's people across it's people from from China, from different parts of the world, but also different backgrounds, but all coming together to support each other. And that was the best part. You mentioned, I had that climate class, that climate and pollution class, and we synthesized articles. So learning new ability to read something very, very, very deep, but able to talk about it and share it back with our classmates. And the thing, everybody is very engaged and very prepared. But it's okay. It's an environment where it's okay to not know the answer and say something that's off the wall. People aren't going to laugh at you or make fun of you, which and the professor and to support you. I mean, you're learning from each other, from their life experiences, but also their lifelong friendships. I mean, that's now that I've stepped out of the program, they're people that I'm going to be friends with moving forward, and these connections back to the university. And the professors really do, from a facilitation standpoint, pushing comments, pushing thoughts, helping you, look at something in a different way than you might not have thought about it when you read it outside of the class and when you're coming and having the conversation.
Tim, can we come to you, and can I broaden that question a little bit, because you've seen scores of classrooms? Can you talk about what you see as distinctive about the intellectual environment here?
So the Socratic seminar, the Socratic method is the cornerstone of the MLA classroom. It's the cornerstone of most Chicago classrooms, but it's certainly how we approach things in the MLA. Our classes meet live, so whether you're in a residential seminar or you're zooming in from some part of the world, you're once a week, or in the residential seminar, for the full week. You're joining others, you're joining your peers, your other students, and the professor for conversation and discussion and exchange. And it's all done live. We deliberately keep our classes small. They're capped at 20 students, but more commonly there's 11 or 12 students in the classroom. We had a meeting with our alumni board last week, and I jotted down something that one of the alumni said. She said she felt like she had box seats for the performance, but except she's very much a part of the performance as well. But I think that box seat analogy, I wrote it down because it captures sort of the intimate environment of the classroom. So it's the Socratic seminar, which means it's very little lecturing, and so everyone has read the same material and they come to discuss and try and figure it out together. And so in various materials around the university, you'll see the phrase spirit of joint inquiry, which I think sort of captures that dynamic very well. And as you mentioned a few minutes ago, there's disagreement and there's debate as appropriate, but it's done collegially and all done sort of with the goal of moving the whole group a little closer to understanding and truth of whatever the topic is at hand. And it's such a fascinating dynamic and an environment to be around that the faculty, genuinely so, the faculty are just as eager to be part of that conversation as the students are. And I know that because I'm in the middle of getting next year's schedule together, and I have more faculty who've expressed an interest in teaching than we'll have spots for them. So there's the word's gotten out around the university that there's something special in our MLA classrooms.
Well, so a final question I want to ask, and then we're going to come to Carrie and to your questions. The University of Chicago, sometimes even in our own marketing, can come across as intimidating. And, I want to just hear from you. I mean, Beth, let's start with you. How did you experience it coming back to school, after being out for some time later in life? Did you feel like there was support for you to be able to thrive? And then Tim, just want to, engage any comments you have on how we really try to make this accessible even among the rigor. Beth, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I came in, one reason I also came to the program was the University of Chicago. I'd gone to programs and speakers and because it's very inclusive to pulling the community in. So I was a little bit intimidated, but able to, the professors are so supportive, and the team, is there to help you to do well. And that's the biggest part of it, is people want you to succeed. And I did a special projects thesis, which again, I did AI related. It's something I didn't know about, and it came out of my digital, it built on it. And the advisor stood right next to me and pushed me to think in a new way and to add to things that I hadn't done, and but was there and made it just a joy. And really, it's the whole process. And that rigor is what made me smarter and more confidence, as Tim mentioned, and just really changed my life. I can't say enough of how this piece of going back to school has really been an important part of of who I am going forward at this stage in my life.
Thank you, Beth. That's very meaningful to us. Tim, anything to add before I turn it over to Carrie to walk us through the process, and then we'll come to questions?
Quickly on some of the support available. Our program staff across the board at the Graham School, deeply committed to student success, has been mentioned. MLA students get individualized, tailored academic advising, figuring out which courses are going to be most useful and interesting to the students, and then also the mundane things, staying on top of administrative deadlines and all those important things. Our staff make sure those things are met. And Beth had mentioned it, but faculty are also extremely committed to student success. So they're generous with their time, they're generous with their feedback and their comments, both in the class conversation, but equally important on student writing. And the faculty understand that MLA students are different than traditional graduate students in that they live busy lives, they have family obligations and busy careers. So the faculty are understanding, and when necessary can be flexible with paper deadlines and extensions and that sort of thing. And then just to underscore the writing support that our writing advisor, Millie Ray, provides. The title writing advisor doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of sort of the services Millie provides for the students. You find out very quickly in MLA classes this connection between writing and thinking, and how well do you really understand a concept until you have to sort of explain it in a 5-page paper. And it's a reciprocal relationship like that, and Millie's available for all of it, from course papers to thinking about thesis proposals to writing the thesis itself.
Well, so we're going to come back to Tim and Beth, but let me just share my screen again for a moment. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Carrie Dempsey, who will walk you briefly through the upcoming application process, and then we will come to your questions, including Brandon, the one that you've already put in the chat, because it's a really valuable one. Carrie?
Great, thanks, Seth. So we have a few upcoming deadlines. For anyone interested in starting with us this winter, which first day of class is January 6th, the application deadline is December 3rd, which I know it sounds like, oh, it's over a month away. We have lots of time. There is going to be quite a few steps that need to be taken before then, and you'll see those in just a minute. So I would start the process now if you haven't started. For anyone who's considering spring, our application deadline for spring will be March 4th. Seth, can you take us to the next slide? So as you see, there are many, many steps in the application process. A few items that I wanted to call out. One is we do request a writing sample. So for the writing sample, it does need to be about 5 pages, double spaced. But this is not something you necessarily need to create net new. We do encourage students to look at things that they may have written recently in an academic setting or even at work. Maybe there's a report that you recently did. We're willing to look at that writing sample before you submit your application and let you know if it's going to work for this portion of the application process. So you can feel free to email that over to us. We will review that, provide you feedback. If we determine it's not quite right for the application, then you can write something. We have people sometimes write a review of a movie or a play that they saw, and that works well too. Anytime you save with submitting something that you've already done for the writing sample, we really ask you that you focus that time then on the candidate statement. This is such an important part of your application because it really tells us, who you are and why this program is right for you, what you'll bring forth to it. So we really encourage you to put quite a bit of thought into this when you're submitting your application. We request 2 letters of recommendation. You do need to submit transcripts for the application process. They just need to be unofficial transcripts. You do not need to submit official transcripts until you've been admitted into the program. You'll supply us with a resume or CV. If you don't meet English proficiency requirements, you will need to submit your TOEFL scores. There's a $75 application fee. And then once you submit, there is also an interview step. This isn't a test of your liberal arts knowledge. This is more so our team can get to know you and just answer any questions that might have come up during the application review. And then if you are admitted to the program, there is tuition. So cost per course is $4,175, which then it would be $37,000 over the course of the program based on this year's tuition fees. But there are a few different ways that our students look to pay for this. So one is we do have some merit scholarships available. If you want to be considered for a merit scholarship, please submit your application sooner rather than later because we review those on a rolling basis. Students who do take 2 to 3 courses each quarter, they can apply for federal student loans. If you're only taking 1 course a quarter, however, and we do have quite a few students in workplaces that do that, you will need to use private loans if needed. And we do really encourage all of our students, if you are employed, talk to your employer, understand what are your tuition reimbursement benefits. So many employers have really great benefits. And understand what they are. And this degree, I'm sure, as you've heard over the course of the last almost hour, really could have direct benefit to your employer. So this is something to take advantage of if it's available to you.
And with that, we are at the time for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see our speakers. And I see one question already in the chat. You can add any additional questions in the chat. You can use at the bottom of your screen the React tab, and you can raise your hand. We also are okay if you just want to unmute and ask your question. But let's start with the one that is here from Brandon. How does an online MLA student connect with the larger University of Chicago community? As a UChicago student, what similarities and differences do they encounter compared to their on-campus peers, particularly regarding the graduation process, post-graduation benefits, and networking opportunities? I'll start a little bit into this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tim and Beth and say, one, that you are absolute full members of the University of Chicago Graham School. We have regular events, both in person and online. Obviously, if you are outside of Chicago, which most of our MLA students are, it's hard to participate in all of the in-person activities that we have available, but we have on at least a bi-weekly basis different online experiences. We also have annual days that we bring our community together in person that are kind of full day retreats. And then we have a number of different opportunities for you to meet other people in the school. At the university level, You are also given the full status of alums when you graduate. You have, graduation with all of your peers. So you are there at convocation, you're wearing your gown, you're going through the same that all other graduate students go through. And then we have a separate ceremony intimately just for our MLA alums. So we treat this as a full, and you are absolutely given the privileges of students. But let me turn it over to Tim and Beth. That said, I want to acknowledge that since most of our students are not in Chicago and are online, whether they're able to participate in all of those experiences is a very different question. I do want to acknowledge that, the participation level among the MLA student body is not the same as the students who are typically younger and typically at a different stage of both life and engagement because of their location. Tim, Beth, let me turn it over to you to add any additional color to that answer.
Yeah, I think it's what you make it. I personally have I've stayed very engaged. I mean, I graduated in June, but even during my program, I sign up for newsletters from different areas. Like today, I was on an online program. Last Friday, I went in person on the campus on something where the president spoke about, and Seth, about the value of the MLA education. So even if you're not here in Chicago, there's just so many, and I really think this is what's really the beauty of being part of the University of Chicago. There are so many really interesting, engaging for people who are curious to just learn about areas. Today was, about, the population decline. I mean, so it's just to take advantage of that. And I think that's the best. And you can do it online because there's something all the time, so that you can stay so connected. And in the graduation, 100% need to do that because it was one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Tim?
I just summarize what was already said, because that was how I would have answered as well. I mean, online community thing, the Graham School, more and more of our students are online. So at least bi-weekly, as Seth said, there's opportunities for community engagement, attending events, and that sort of thing. But equally important at the university level, MLA students, full graduate students at the University of Chicago, with all of the perks and privileges that come with that. He asked specifically about graduation. That was addressed. The graduation process is exactly the same as it is for in-person students, including the big, beautiful university-wide convocation ceremony with all the divisions and the bagpipes leading you into the middle of the quad in June. And as a full graduate student at the University of Chicago, you're able to take advantage of all those opportunities that Beth mentioned, different affinity groups around campus, and different interest groups, and whatever you happen to be interested in. There's a group you can sign up for, and then the post-graduation benefits and networking. Anything available to a normal graduate student, not normal, anything available to an in-person graduate student at University of Chicago, available to our MLA graduates as well.
The next question here from Cody is, could the MLA be used to prepare for a doctoral program? I mean, Tim, can I hand that over to you? And I'll just say that there are, ways in which you can do a master's and then go into your doctorate. This is not that type of opportunity, because those are typically in a specific field where along the way to your doctorate, you will get, for example, if you're getting your PhD in sociology, you'll get your MPhil in sociology. But this is a way of proving your abilities at a graduate level as a way of potentially applying. And we have especially seen some people that have done something like this in midlife when they've been out for a while. And then I know at least one, and maybe Tim, you can speak to the specifics here, because I just remember talking with him at graduation, but he was headed to Harvard in South Asian Studies. And again, I'm not remembering all the details, but this was a pathway for him in that direction, but you may know the specifics. I can't remember if it's a PhD or another context in which he's doing that.
Yeah, his name was Sharath, and he was an eye doctor by training and is retiring from his practice in Milwaukee, and had done the MLA and as many of his electives as he could. He took in South Asian philosophy and literature, and he is at Harvard now, pursuing on the road to pursuing a PhD program there. I had an email this morning from a current MLA student who's and this is not the norm, but she is in Rhodes right now doing her MLA thesis research and networking, and she's got a fascinating story that project that I don't have time to do all the details on, but she's there and she's also talking to other scholars there, and she's applying to PhD programs afterwards. So the majority of our students don't go on to PhD work, not because there's anything specifically like prohibitive about the MLA program that would prevent you from doing that, but it's just not the stage of life that they're interested that they're at, or sort of their career goals. But like as I said, there are master's programs that are specifically designed to sort of move along to a PhD program. But for our students that are interested in more graduate work down the road, that's one of those things that letting our team know as you enter, then we can sort of guide you to the classes that would be most effective in helping you get there.
And I looked at doctoral programs coming into this program a lot, and also now, and to your point, Tim, exactly. I feel 100% confident that I mean, now I'm back in the school mode, and I've looked at 2 or 3 other programs moving on to get a doctoral at some point. Maybe not today, but within the next couple of years.
So we have another specific case here, but I think it will draw out some broader themes for everyone. The question is, this student graduated in 2022 from UChicago with global honors, and is thinking about this as an opportunity to open doors to become a writing instructor at a college in the future. How do we think, Tim, about the number of years someone has? We talk about many people in this degree being senior leaders, but there is, a wide array of ages. And then how do you think about it in the context of adding to a bachelor's as people think about different opportunities in education itself?
So in specifics of this question of improving writing and being a writing instructor at a college in the future, I can think of a couple of recent alums that have used the master's degree to go teach generally at a sort of the junior college level. A few have been other places. It's always dependent on where you're applying to. And the general rule is you have to have a certain amount of credit hours in the discipline you're teaching. So for this interested potential applicant, you'd obviously want to be taking as many like literature and writing classes in the MLA as possible to meet that hours requirement. But just so to reiterate, there's been a handful of even recent alums that have sort of parlayed their MLA experience into teaching at the collegiate level. And how long after submitting the application would we know if you've qualified for the video interview? Well, everyone who applies, we will interview, but more broadly on the timeline, usually within 2 or 3 weeks of getting an application, we can get in contact and schedule an interview, and that timeline gets a little shorter closer to the deadline for obvious reasons.
Yeah, just to echo Tim, unless there's like incomplete information, we consider the interview to be a part of the application. So we see this as a single process, and then all of that's considered as part of a holistic admissions process. Any other questions that you have? Yeah, Patricia, I saw your hand potentially. You're welcome to unmute if you want to ask directly.
Hi, Dean Green. This is Patricia. Hello, everybody. So my question is, I'm definitely mid-career. I'm in the basic program right now.
Great.
I came out of Case Western. I have an MA and have taught at another university as a writing instructor and as an administrator in the Chicago area. But I came back to University of Chicago because I felt the need to go deeper into the Western great books. So I have an MA and more, a bit more. But I'm still very curious about this program, and I'm just wondering. I'm not a corporate executive. I'm an educator hired, and I'm happy with that. So how would this program be related to what I have done in a sense, because again, I'm not in business. I've been in philanthropy and higher ed. So if you could just kind of touch
Yeah.
on that.
Absolutely. So first, I think as you're asking that question, I'm realizing we may have overdone our point in the sense that, in some ways it's clear to us, oh, a Master of Liberal Arts helps you to advance in your deep understanding of the humanities and social sciences. So we may have overdone the fact that, it also has great relevance to people in business and these other domains. To be clear, there is a mix of people in the cohort and in the program, and you would absolutely fit into that mix, and that is very much intended. I think we've gone out of our way to say we also really invite in business leaders and other, backgrounds that want to be part of this tradition too, so that we're opening that tent up and showing the relevance.
I see that we're losing Seth. Oh,
Oh, yeah, am I back? Okay, sorry about that. Well, so the other point I would just make is that what is complementary, and Patricia's referencing another program of the Graham School that we also love, is that the great books is really a very specific set of texts, that go through kind of a classical tradition to today. That is only really deeply in one kind of division of the university. And so what this is doing is this is really the multidisciplinary liberal arts, including the sciences. One other distinction is that the program that you're a part of is where you are in all Socratic dialogue and you read the text and then you talk about it. This is with an expert-led orientation. So most of our faculty will do at least mini lectures, and so it's a mix between lecture and discussion. So there's a difference in the content and then in the modality, but hopefully many things in common with your experience and the rigor and the incredible peers that are around you. I know we are at time. I think we have actually come through the questions, but maybe what we'll say is class dismissed, so to speak. So we want to let you out and let you know that we are a timely school. So thank you for joining us, but I will stick around if there are any individual questions that you have, and Tim maybe as well, just so if there's anyone with remaining questions, we can answer them. Have a great evening, everyone. And San, we see your hand. We'll stick around for you. Bye.